Mikal Bridges, and the way he's been playing to close this year out, I didn't know he could be a go-to guy. He's putting up 40s, 30s, yeah, it shocked me when Mikal went there and he's doing what he's doing.
This version of Mikal Bridges can play on any championship level team and be a starter and play 40+ minutes in the playoffs. There's not, Tommy, I'm going to be clear on this. There's not that many guys in the league that you could say that about.
The Brooklyn Nets may have gotten swept in the first round this year, but they're still the team most likely to become the NBA's next dominant super team. You see, they started out this year as rough as you can get, with both Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving requesting a trade. Kyrie getting canceled by the league, Ben Simmons playing at an all-time low, and them looking like they had nowhere to go. At the start of the year, this season looked like it'd be a throwaway for Brooklyn, but it ended up being anything but that. And it all starts with the Kyrie Irving trade, when he was sent to Dallas in exchange for Spencer Dinwiddie, Dorian Finney-Smith, and a first-round pick, which was a good return, but by no means gonna save their season or give anyone hope for the future. But then when KD gets traded just 3 days later for Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and 4 first-round picks, everything starts to look up. And I'll tell you why that continued. But first, I want to thank Ipsos iSay for sponsoring today's video. Ipsos iSay is where you can go to take surveys, give your honest opinions, and get rewarded for it. All of the surveys are tailored to your interests and situation, so it makes them a lot of fun. And the fact that you're taking part in research and getting rewarded for it makes it that much better. When I'm sitting back watching TV or editing a video, I do a few quick surveys, then eventually I'm able to get Amazon gift cards in return. But there's also other rewards too, like gift cards from Starbucks, Target, and Walmart, or you can even get money sent straight to your PayPal account, which is an option I've never seen before. Doing surveys in my spare time is something that's been so easy, and doing it with a brand like Ipsos iSay makes it even easier. Because the website's super simple, they don't overcomplicate things, and it's literally only 3 tabs. Surveys, your profile, then the rewards section. So all you have to do is click the link in my description to start earning rewards with Ipsos iSay today. Shout out to them for sponsoring the video. Now let's get back to it. So when Brooklyn made all the roster moves, at the time the Nets were getting one of the best 3-and-D role players in the league to go along with a stretch 4 that has great defense. Not even to mention the 4 first-rounders. It looked like this trade was going to completely reset the team and lead them to a rebuild that they could take a few years to complete. That was even the Nets' intentions when trading away their 2 superstars. But to the surprise of the entire league, including Brooklyn, Mikal Bridges instantly started playing like a star. The Phoenix Suns didn't really know what they were giving up, because they were only playing him as a 3rd or 4th option guy in the starting lineup. They didn't usually run plays for him, and instead he just operated as a 3-and-D guy that stayed ready whenever they chose to pass him the ball. They didn't know he had so many moves and so much potential on offense. Even a guy like JJ Redick, who played against him and now analyzes basketball for a living, agreed and said he knew Bridges was good, but he had no idea he had that much going for him on offense. But with that and the fact that he's the Iron Man of the NBA and has never missed a game in his career, Brooklyn got a major win from this trade, because they traded a superstar in KD but got their own star in return. I mean, 3 games in, he put up a career high 45 points on 70% shooting and 66% from 3 against one of the best defensive teams in the league in the Miami Heat, which all gave similar vibes to when James Harden was traded from OKC being their role player to the Houston Rockets and becoming their star. While he was with OKC, everyone knew James was young and talented, but nobody quite realized he was good enough to be a superstar. And the fact that Mikal would lead the team and average a career high 26 points per game for the rest of the season only backed up the similarities, while at the same time Cam Johnson was stepping up his game, putting up career highs across the board. Now on the other side, I will say it's easy to look at how this entire season unfolded and not be super impressed. Before the KD trade, the Nets were 33-22 on the season, and after it, with Bridges leading the charge, they finished the year out 12-15. Not even to mention in the postseason, Mikal's numbers dropped and they got swept in the first round by the 76ers even when Joel wasn't playing. None of that is a great sign. There's a few things that could have been at fault here though. I mean, these guys only played together for 27 games. They weren't built to be a system that could succeed. Half the roster was just all the best players Brooklyn could get in a trade and all matched up together into one. There was really no formula or expectation to succeed here. So the fact that Brooklyn didn't succeed shouldn't play into any negatives at all onto Mikal's ability to be a star or lead a team to success, because that was the biggest reason the Nets got swept by the 76ers. They just weren't ready and had no time to get ready, seeing that the Kevin Durant trade went down at the trade deadline. But with all that said, this team still has major upside, and here's why. Just look at their roster. Nearly every single player on the team is under the age of 30. Royce O'Neal, a 29-year-old 3-and-D player that can fit into any system or rotation. And when he was on the Utah Jazz, he often came up big as a starter of a real playoff team. Cam Thomas, a 21-year-old shooting guard who has major upside as a scorer and has already started to gain respect around the league, even though he's played very limited minutes and is only in year 2. With a big thanks to that coming from the 3 straight games he had scoring 40+. One was against the Clippers where both PG and Kawhi played, and another was against the Phoenix Suns, who still had Mikal Bridges. Cam Thomas is early in his career, but definitely keep a lookout for him 2 to 4 years down the line. There's Nick Claxton that's still only 23 years old, who still needs to grow into his body and put on more size. But in his first full year as a full-time starter, he's made a huge impact. He finished second in the NBA in blocks per game with 2.5 and led the league in field goal percentage at over 70%. If he keeps progressing at this rate, he can be scary good in a few years. They have Dorian Finney-Smith, who's another 29-year-old 3-and-D guy who fits well into any system. The 29-year-old Spencer Dinwiddie has a ton of playoff experience and could easily average 20 a game, but instead put up nearly 16 and 10 this season in what could be argued as his best year in the NBA yet. Then of course there's both Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges, who are elite defensive stoppers, with the only 2 players being over the age of 30 on the entire roster being Joe Harris and Patty Mills. And even though this whole squad might not mesh well together, they have plenty of ways they can move guys around in the near future. I mean, I'd trade a couple of these guys right away because they're pretty heavy on 3-and-D players, so they should tailor their squad to be more filled out across the board, while hopefully maintaining a young age. Now with all that said, there's still 2 major downsides to this team. The first is the Ben Simmons situation, and the fact that he'll be making $40 million for 2 more years with them. If he was back to fully playing like his old self, that would only make this team that much better, but those days are gone and never coming back. The other downside is that even with everything I said, I have a feeling that Mikal might end up being a better second option as opposed to a superstar. It's not a bad thing, and I hope I'm wrong, but right now I see him as a more advanced Chris Middleton that has lockdown defense. So why is this the NBA's next dominant super team? Well, that's because they're only now 1 superstar away from it happening, and they have more than enough assets to bring one in. They now have all these extra role players and those 5 first-round picks they brought in this season. For example, of course Jimmy Butler's doing his thing in Miami, and there's a lock to probably not be moved. But just imagine a guy like Jimmy playing with all the talent that Brooklyn has, and with a 26 point per game scorer like Mikal Bridges being his second option. So if this team with all this talent had a guy like Butler, or really any other superstar they could bring in, I think they're going to be great for a long time to come. And it's not going to take too much convincing to bring someone in either, because from a player's perspective, any superstar in the league would be lining up for a chance to play with these guys, and from a front office perspective, and thanks to the 5 first-round picks, extra depth on the roster, and big contracts as salary filler, they could make almost any trade work. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Nets make a big move like this at any point this year. The only thing I can think to relate this current roster to is maybe the 2012 Chicago Bulls before Derrick Rose rose up into a league MVP, or even the Sacramento Kings right before Domantas Sabonis got there this season. They have everything to be championship contenders, they're just missing one piece now. And once that guy steps up or gets brought into the team, I expect them to make a lot of noise in the league. And with stars like Trae Young, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, and Damian Lillard all being rumored in trade talks these days, it wouldn't be surprising to see a major deal go down over the next 12 months. As a matter of fact, it's not too crazy to think that the Blazers could trade Lillard to this team. They could get Ben Simmons draft picks and even another young player or 2 in return. Then it'd be hard to argue the fact that this team wouldn't be one of the best in the NBA. And if a trade doesn't go down in the next 12 months, the 2024 NBA offseason will be one to keep your eyes on, because Brooklyn will have nearly $80 million in salary cap space to fill. And with it being one of the biggest free agency years with guys like DeMar DeRozan, Klay Thompson, James Harden, Pascal Siakam, Porzingis, Jaylen Brown, Domantas Sabonis, and many more stars being unrestricted free agents that year, there's a lot of different options if you're the Brooklyn Nets. Or listen, maybe the best option of all plays out, which is that Mikal Bridges really is the superstar that he's shown a glimpse of, and maybe since it was his first opportunity in that role, it's just taking some time to get used to. And now in 2023, he'll level up again as a scorer, make the All-Star team, lead his team to success, and the Nets' only job will be to now trade the pieces they need to fully construct this roster around him. I know that's what I'm personally pulling for the most, but we'll just have to wait and see. Either way though, no matter what the outcome is, this team is a future super team waiting to happen.